Embassy Suites, where I'm interviewing Ray Collier. This is the Southwest Reunion of the 12th Armored Division. Ray, if you can give me your title and name for me again, please.
Be glad to. They refer to you as Charla, right?
Charla.
Charla, not Charla.
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 Yeah.
Be happy to do that, Charla. My name is Raymond, middle initial O, Collier, Jr. I am a professor emeritus, which means professor retired, from the University of Minnesota in the departments of applied statistics, educational psychology, psychology, and the School of Public Affairs. Some of my friends have said to me after hearing that rather long array of departments with which I had been previously affiliated, they've said to me the following. They've said, "Oh, you had a tough time keeping a job, didn't you?" You got it. I thought that was really sort of amusing there, you know. Maybe not that amusing, but not too bad. Anyway, I retired from the University of Minnesota after having taught there for 30 years. I retired in 1984. I now live in Longview, Texas, and I'm 74 years old, very happy and unbelievably healthy. And I do not look at, some people say, you don't look a day over 84, which means that you could be 74. And you don't act a day over 13.
That's right. That is correct.
Carry on, ma'am.
Okay. Tell me...
and this is going to be, this whole interview is going to be one of sort of lightheartedness, because we'll get very serious about some things, but we'll still keep it in an intimate vein. Is that very good?
That's correct. Okay. I would like to...
Some of the people in the room here.
Yeah. Right.
Go ahead, will you? Cut all that stuff out.
Okay, Ray.
Yes.
What I want to know is where you were on D-Day. Not D-Day, I'm sorry. Pearl Harbor Day.
Pearl Harbor Day, that was
Pearl Harbor Day, where you were at, what you heard, and how you found out the war had started.
Okay, Pearl Harbor Day, it was December the 7th, wasn't it? Or 8th? 7th. 1940. I can't even remember the year of that. Can 41. You? 41, was it? 1941. At that time, was it actually?
Go ahead, Ray.
No, I'm serious now.
Oh, yeah, 41, I believe.
If I can't remember anything, I'm just going to swear. 41. I was in El Paso, Texas. My family had moved there from Douglas, Arizona. I graduated from high school in 1940, and in 41 I was working for Remington Rand. I was at that time at 41. I was 19, working for Remington Rand as a electric shaver mechanic, making $60 a month, and I was preparing to go to Texas College of Mines and Metallurgy in order to enter in as an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. And when I heard the announcement, as I recall, it made it had an influence on me. The impact was sort of like halfway emptiness, because it was hard for me to believe that some country had bombed this country. On the other hand, I'm not one really to appreciate the term "on the other hand." It's rather, we don't use that a lot around me. But on the other hand, I thought, well, that's so far away. What's the big deal? But then reality sort of set in. I said, oh my God, I think we're going to get into this one, and I got a feeling if I'm 19, I'm just going to liable to be involved. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what was your journey from that realization until you got
in the service?
In the service.
Well, in 1940, 1941, or the latter part of 1941, I worked for a year for Remington Rand. Then they were very nice to me. They allowed me to work full-time for them if I would work in the afternoon. If I go to school in the morning, go to College of Mines, Texas College of Mines and Metallurgy, a branch of the University of Texas at that time as well. I would go in the morning and take my courses, and in the afternoon I would work. Sometimes I'd work until 7 at night, but I worked a full-time job and went to Texas to College of Mines full-time as well. And then so I enlisted. The word came down from in the pipeline via the pipeline that there was a program. They had V5 and all of these various programs that would allow an individual to go into the Army or the Navy or whatever service and to be educated at that time. But there was also a program called well, I can't remember what the exact exactly at that time the program was called, but the program had these were the goals of the program. You enlisted in what was known as the Enlisted Reserve Corps, the ERC, and you were presumably now the assumption was by the implication, the assumption by us, the recipients, was that we would be allowed to go to school to finish our degrees, then we'd go in the Army and be candidate. We given a chance to be to go to OCS in engineering. Well, that didn't happen. We were in. I think I stayed 3 months out of the Army, and then they drafted all of us, and I was drafted into the into the Army, and sent to Camp Maxey, Texas, and we stayed in a Japanese cantonment camp with barbed wire on it. This cantonment camp was a camp that had been built to contain Japanese prisoners, not prisoners of war, but from the West Coast who had been transferred over, which was kind of not a very good thing. But at least we had basic training there, and it was good and it was hard, near Paris, Texas. And we learned some things about the Army, and I thought it was very good. I weighed, at that time, I weighed about 165. I weigh 185 now, but I have weighed more than that during my career. But we went there, and after we took basic training, I was missent actually, to the University of Arkansas, and put in a course. I had had 2 years of college by that time, see, and in sort of the preliminaries of engineering. And we were sent to University of Arkansas, where 5 of us were, but we were missent there because we had already had the coursework there. So they said, well, we made an error, so we'll send you after about 3 or 4 months. I was sent in September of 1943. I was sent to Texas Technological College, and which was great, and we studied very hard. I finished two semesters there, 5 and 6, or 4 and 5. I guess 4 and 5. Anyway, sort of advanced engineering, and then they broke very rapidly. They broke the program up. It was at that time we were enrolled in a program which was referred to as Army Specialized Training Program, and ASTP, and they broke the program up and sent all of us, or many of us, to combat outfits. I was sent to the 12th Armored Division to replenish some of their depleted manpower.
Tell me about the expectations of tech and how you found out that they were taking you out of the ASTP. You had not completed the
No, hadn't completed the course.
So you would not be an officer?
No. Well, I wouldn't even be. I'd have to, if I were going to be an officer, I'd have to go through the ordinary
well,
fonts.
tell me that experience and feelings and all that.
Okay. When they told us that they'd broken up the program at Texas Tech and elsewhere, there must have been, I don't know how many thousand, maybe 125,000 men who were involved in this breakup and who had been enrolled in ASTP, who were sent to various units, many, in the main of combat outfit. I was absolutely demolished, devastated, upset, angry, mad. You know, I don't mean just angry. I mean just out of it. I couldn't. It was a terrible letdown. That we were going to be. It was something like, well, you mean to tell me that we, the intelligentsia, as it were, are going to be sent to a combat outfit? Well, we didn't know that we were, but I mean that's what seemed to be in the breeze, But anyway, they're going to we all talked about it. And we said, well, they have broken their word, and then we had a heavy realization. We didn't have any word. We had never had any written agreement by the Army or any other federal organization that certain expectations were to be there. So it was fine as far as they were concerned. But we had certain expectations, and one of them was that we were allowed to finish our university training, and that we would go to OCS. Well, I was sent to the 17th Armored Infantry Battalion out of the 12th Armored Division, and the infantry was the last place in the world that anybody with any kind of mind at all would want to go, particularly as a PFC.
Tell me about that.
Well, the infantry was not only a bad place to go in terms of being shot at and perhaps being killed, because we all knew that they had the highest casualty rates of any organization in the Army or Marine Corps, etc. But this was a come down. You know, we were college students, and we'd been led to believe that we were pretty hot stuff. Now in retrospect, I think that was a sort of mistake, but I think it was unavoidable type of mistake, because you can't be tested, and in order to reach a certain level of capability, and then be put in this outfit and go to college, and all of a sudden to be taken out of it and put in the infantry is a terrible come down. See, so the chances of getting ourselves in bad problems, of combat and wounded and killed and so on, was imminent. And not only was that true, but we felt like we had been betrayed, and I felt just absolutely I was serious. I was devastated. It took me a long time to really realize that I was in a place, and I kept thinking, now, how can I get out of this outfit? Well, all of the ways that I could think about getting out were disreputable. You know, they were unsavory to me. I wouldn't take, you know, like I could fake a sort of a mental problem, or I could fake get a Section 8 discharge or something like that, or pull some strings in order to get transferred. But there was nothing I could do. There was absolutely nothing I could do. And my buddies and I realized this all of a sudden. Okay, so it was terrible. That was absolutely terrible. I was so mad. I wanted to just, you know, it's a good thing they didn't give me a gun then. I would have gone out and tried, you know. That was my feeling, of course. I wouldn't have done that, because I might have killed myself in the process. Self-inflicted wound in the foot and so on. Okay? It was terrible, absolutely. The whole thing was absolutely devastating.
So
I might add that point of view was not very helpful to me at the time. Being a soldier, being a PFC in an infantry outfit, having a point of view that I was better than those guys, you know, that I didn't deserve to be in an infantry outfit. I felt that way. And all the rest of us, I think, felt that way. That didn't help me in my adjustment to the infantry. Okay, so it was very bad.
So when you went straight from Tech, did you come to Berkeley at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about how you got to Berkeley and that first day's experience. What happened, how you felt, people you remember.
Yeah, I don't remember, pardon me, I don't remember how we got to Berkeley. Perhaps it was on a train, and there were 50 of us. There were a fair number of ASTP guys from Texas Tech that went to Berkeley, from Texas Tech directly, because there were 50 in my company, in the Company A of the 17th Armored Infantry Battalion. There were 50 of us. I guess it was by train, and we were upset. But I think I was so upset about having been booed, about the program being dissolved, that I didn't feel like recalling anything. But I knew when I got there that things were not going to be very good, because we went to a reclassification officer, and my experience with the reclassification officer went like this. He said, "Well, PFC, was a PFC by that time, big deal." He said, "I never got to be above a PFC, I might add, too." He said, "Private Collier?" I said, "First class." And he said, "Yes, first class." He said, what type of an outfit would you like to be in?" I said, "Well, I'd like to be in an outfit well, quite frankly, I'd like to be in an outfit like an ordnance outfit, because I know a little bit about machinery and a little bit and some about engineering." He said, "No, we don't have any openings there." I said, "Well, how about a signal outfit?" He said, No. We have a signal company in the 12th, but they're full up." I said, "Would you go for maybe go back a little farther for the division headquarters?" "No, I said, "How about you see the line is here," and I was getting closer and closer to the line. "How about an artillery outfit? They're not right on the line. They're back, you know. They do shelling." "No, we're pretty full up there too. No openings there." I said, "How about a tank outfit? I'm getting pretty close to the point where somebody's going to get hurt, see?" And he said, "Well, let's see. No, no dice there." I said, "Well, I guess maybe there's only one thing left I can think of." He said, "That's right." I said, "We're talking about infantry, aren't we?" He said, "That's right." I said, "Well, not much I can do about it, is there?" So he said, so then I realized that the fat was in the fire, boy. I mean, and my body was with all the rest of the fat. And I was lean and mean and green then. So I went to the infantry.
tell me about your captain, those guys that were there.
Oh, you mean when we first got there?
Yeah, when you first got there.
Well, there were a lot of guys that had come out of Tech, like George Hatt and I were together, and Jack Jensen, I knew him, and I had known him back at Tech, and several other guys that had come out of Tech. Carl Lyons, guys who were in the 12th in Company A of the 17th AIB, and we compared notes, and we said, well, we're going to infantry. That's all, buddy. So we got to the infantry, and we were assigned. They gave us a sort of a pep talk, but it wasn't much of a pep talk. It was kind of like, you guys are in the infantry, you better wise up, smarten up, and quit messing around and keep your nose to the grindstone, and that's it. So we were assigned to, and this, I thought this to be funny until I found out later the reason, sort of basic to this whole. Almost all of us were assigned to weapons, to, what do they call them, manned weapons squads, like machine gun squads, where you had groups of individuals who were assigned to man a weapon, and mortar squads. A lot of my buddies went to mortar squads. I went to the 2nd Platoon's mortar squad. George Hatt went to the 3rd Platoon mortar squad, and I thought, well, mortar squad at least maybe several yards behind the front. I may not be in such bad shape for getting maimed or so on. It wasn't too bad, but I still felt unbelievably demoted and demeaned, and boy, I mean, you guys are, you're using so on. Well, I was in terribly bad shape as far as feeling better than thou, and which was not helpful in my trying to readjust to the situation. Okay. I remember that as an example of how things went. We stayed in the mortar squads. We learned about mortars for a while, and it wasn't more than maybe a week after we'd been in there. And I thought it was not bad. I was interested. I really this sounds sort of not immodest. Sort of sounds disconnected and perhaps misplaced. But that's remarkable. But I've always tried to sort of make peace with my surroundings, and to me, all my life, my sort of credo has been laugh or die, because if I couldn't laugh, I was really in bad shape. And I was having a tough time not laughing, because there wasn't too much laughter around. Every time I'd laugh, some of my colleagues would cry, so that's sort of like, laugh and cry, sort of zero as a resultant. So I remember they called out, it came down through the lines that our sergeant said, his name was James Semprini, one of the best soldiers I have ever known in my whole absolute life. Fantastic man, but an unbelievably capable soldier out of the 2nd Cavalry Division. He said, we're going to have a stringent inspection coming up, full field as they called it. Everything was to be inspected. Well, we did all the right. I mean, we worked our tails off, see, because we had to show the captain, whose name was Carl Helton, we had to show him that we were better than just trash, I felt that way. So we got the thing ready, we got all our stuff together, and they judged everything. We were in good shape, so we went out for our rifle inspection, see. And he went down the line and inspected all of the outfits, and all of a sudden I realized that the Captain Helton, had gigged, that is, found our rifles to be unsatisfactory, dirty rifle, gig, for every single ASTP man in his company. There's 50 of them. Now, some people don't believe this, nor do they, as a matter of fact, they don't even remember it. But I remember it, and I put it down in my book. And I hold grudges, see. I held that grudge for a long time. And he gigged every one of us, and he said, you men are new men in here, and there's no excuse for your not knowing how to clean a rifle. We had cleaned those rifles were unbelievably clean. I mean, I checked everybody. Wow, if this rifle flunks, the whole army's in bad shape. So he said, you guys stay here, and we're going to check you out later, and then you can you're not going to go to Abilene. So he checked us out much later, about 4, 5, 6 hours later. I can't remember. I don't think we went to Abilene that night. And we checked us out, and we all passed. And some of the guys didn't even clean their rifles again, and they passed because the rifles had been impeccably clean to begin with. So I never forgot that. See, you got to remember now that Carl Helton is an extremely good friend of mine nowadays. He and I've done a lot of good stuff. I always respected the guy, but he was a fine man, and he retired from the Army some years ago as a colonel, full bird colonel. had a medical retirement as a full unbird PFC, and he and I are good buddies. But at that time, I didn't like him very much.
What was it about him you didn't like?
Well, the man was he was cocky. Now I hope that he sees this because I want him to know exactly how I felt. I've written about this. I've written a piece called "The Captain and His Company." The Army, it wasn't the Army's company, it was his personal company. I hope you see this, Carl, because you know that I wrote the same stuff. He was cocky. He was unbelievably well dressed. I mean, he was, well, you talk about razor, fantastic. He was good looking in his clothes. He was hard but quiet, calm, quiet hardness. He knew what he wanted. He was extremely good at his job of discipline and training of these men, okay? But he was also egoistic, egotistical, unbelievably ambitious, and one hell of a great soldier. Even at the first I knew this, see? And he had treated me personally poorly when he gigged me, and I didn't have a dirty rifle. It was the cleanest rifle that ever existed. And all of my guys. See? Now, I'm not going to forget this. I said, Carl, Captain Heldon, I'm a PFC, but I'm not going to forget this. And if I ever get a chance, what I'm going to do is to do what you want me to do, because I can't do anything else. You know, you can't, no reprise, nothing back. But I was angry, you know. But that's exactly what the man wanted to happen. See, because after the war, I went to him and asked him, just forthrightly, what happened about this? Now, I want to know. You did this. He said, "Do you remember?" I said, "Do you remember that?" He said, "Yes, I do remember that." I said, "You wanted to tell me why this all happened?" He said, "Surely. You guys came into my outfit, 50 of you. You were to replace men that had been pulled out of my outfit for various reasons. I don't know, physical, mental, who knows. But you were to be in my outfit. I figured that you were all very bright, and the little guys were bright, see? And bright soldiers, bright men make good infantry soldiers. So he's going to replenish his outfit, and there we were. But we were angry at the Army. I mean, we're absolutely angry at the Army and anything that was labeled even slightly Armish. And he said, so what I thought I would do, my way of handling it, was to transfer that anger from the Army to me personally. And I said, when I talked to him after the war, I said, well, you sure as hell did it, because my anger to the Army transferred right to you. He said, good. Pardon me, because that's exactly what I wanted. Well, in the process of doing that, he was successful. I don't think there are a lot of guys that he didn't work with, but most of them had worked in some way. Many of my buddies don't remember this incident, but he did it to me, and as time went on, I found myself becoming proud. I don't think I had any other choice, but I became proud of being in the Company A of the 17th Armored Infantry Battalion, and I was particularly proud of being a PFC in a mortar squad under this captain who was about as tough as you can get. So I became proud, and all of a sudden I realized one day that I could do anything that anybody else in that outfit could do physically and certainly mentally, because there was no mental strain about being able to work a 60 millimeter mortar, you know. I mean, that wasn't tough to do. It was just speed and coordination and so on. We learned how to do that rapidly. And we learned how to do transition back and forth and elevation and all that sort of thing. So as far as I was concerned, I was getting to the point where I was becoming used to the outfit, see. And it was quite a thing to see, because I knew that I was going to be in combat. I was going to get shot at, and there I was becoming used to it. Well, we worked hard, worked and sweat and blood and dust, and at Abilene, Texas was murder and get out, all that sort of thing. It was very, very bad. But I started becoming sort of, this sounds sort of maudlin, really. You mean you became proud of your being able to do this? I said, I really did. See, I was lean, and I was really, I could walk 1,000 miles. And I wasn't that hefty, muscularly, but I could do anything anybody can do. I could carry a 50-pound mortar for 25 miles without worrying about it. So I got to be, all of a sudden I realized, sort of, that I was a member of the outfit. They no longer chided us and been saying, ASTP, wise guys, brainy cats, all that stuff, Quiz kids, they called us. But they didn't do that very much after a while. We were just part of the outfit, which is exactly what Helton wanted us to do, see. He had achieved his purpose magnificently.
How long did it take for this process to do you have a time?
Yeah.
How long did it take?
See, we got there in about March of 1944, and we left in about September, see. this reunion, the one we're at now, well, what is it, October the 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, was the first time that George Hatt, Carl Helton, Marvin Drum, and Ray Collier had been together at this site where everything started for us, the first time in 52 years, 1944, 52 years. So it was kind of significant and unbelievably unique. So there, so we got there, as I recall, in March of '44. But I know by the time that a month had passed, I felt that because we worked hard. See, there were terrible problems out digging holes and mock battle, and another outfit like the 13th Armored Division in Brownwood, Texas, and the 12th Armored Division had a sort of a get-together, an exercise in which they were opponents of one another. And at nights, sometimes we wouldn't get more than 2 or 3 hours sleep. Sometimes no sleep at a night, and we always had people attacking your position and shooting blanks in your face, you know, and it was really murder. But I got to the point where I could do it, and I became rather sort of proud of the whole thing. It took I think that we were in pretty good shape in 2 months. That had been March, April, May. And by the time we shipped out of Barclay in September, as I recall, and went to Camp Shanks, New York, to our POE, to England, we were in pretty good shape as far as being able to look at ourselves as being, well, we're here. We don't have any other place to go. We're not in college. We had some college in our background, but who cares? We just had to learn enough to stay alive. And so we were on our way, and that we didn't feel too badly about it. Well, not badly enough, but, nobody was crying and so on. So that...
I'm going to skip, and I need to interview again for the tape, but I'm going to skip because you've got something you're doing too.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip now. I'm going to go to Herleshheim.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be doing some taping for that.
Right.
Tell me about Herleshheim.
Well, now, to begin with, you got to the date. The date I'm talking about is January the 16th, 1945, and our outfit had been sort of little poop had been given a priori the thing what we were supposed to do that day. The night before we were told that we were going to attack a certain position in a place called Offendorf, France, and there was another town near it called Herles. The actual pronunciation of the word Herles, it's Herlesheim. I never knew that until we went back to France a year ago. But the pronunciation is Herlesheim or Herlesheim or whatever, but not Herlesheim as most of us say. But we were going to take Offendorf, and it wasn't supposed to be too heavily loaded, and the armament was not supposed to be heavy, but it happened to be unbelievably well guarded by, as I recall, the 10th SS Panzer Division, the general of which was Major General Heinz Harmel, who was the general at a place called in Holland, Arnhem, about which the movie A Bridge Too Far was. He was at that place, see, and he was hot stuff, and so were his guys. And I think there's another. I can't remember the other. There was several outfits there. Anyway, he was there and with all of his guys. We left in the middle of the night in our half tracks. It was kind of halfway snowing, and we got to a place called Wiersheim, which is not too far. I revisited those places a year ago. We got out of our half tracks in Wiersheim and formed up and marched through the town, and it was a very eerie. It was early in the morning, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was an eerie feeling to be marching through this town because it had the smell. To me, it had the smell of death, and nobody was around. We marched through the town and slowly, and we marched on through, and we came along. After a while, the ground was frozen. It was very cold. I think at the time it was about 30, it might have been 33, but just on the verge of freezing. But the ground was frozen solid, and we stopped, and guys tried to dig in, but they couldn't since the ground was frozen like a rock. And I'll skip all of the movement explanations because I can't remember a lot of those places, and somebody would say, well, this didn't happen. But I found myself in a fairly flat field to the, now here I am, and to my right was a woods called the, I can't remember the name of the woods now, Steinwald. And to my left, there were some tanks, maybe 11, 12, 13 tanks were knocked out. Tanks of American Sherman tanks knocked out, some burning, some had gone through the ice into the ground, solid ground underneath when they were sort of halfway submerged. And as I recall, this was sort of noonish or maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And my squad was on, my squad leader, a man by the name of Warren Maui, a good soldier, I might add, and a good squad leader, said, okay, let's stop, guys. And so we stopped, and we all on the ground because we would lay down, you know, and nobody dug in because we were waiting to see what was going to happen. And I looked to my right, and I saw the captain, Captain Carl Helton, talking with a forward observer from an artillery outfit, and they were going to lay fire in the front of us because there was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of mortar fire in our positions, and there was some Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons that the Germans used against tank whizzing around, and machine gun fire, small arms fire, and 88 fire, 88 millimeter rifle fire. And it was kind of scary, you know, a lot of stuff going on around there. And the captain was trying to, I don't recall, I've heard his story later, but they were getting ready to lay some artillery fire in the front of us to sort of help us in the position. But we were on the ground waiting for things to happen, and we weren't digging holes either. And my sergeant, or the gunner, was carrying the mortar. We had it in a sling. It was the whole mortar, fully assembled. It weighed about 50 pounds, I think. He'd been carrying it for a while, and he was upset with carrying it. His name was Henry Dirks. He was a good man. He was the first #1 gunner. I was the #2 gunner. And he said, Ray, he said, let's exchange places. Instead of carrying the mortar around, we'd exchange places. I take his place carrying the mortar. He takes my place where I was. So we exchanged. I said, I'm not going to do it. I said, yeah, I've been carrying it. We went into our usual argumentation about, you carried it more, and so on. I said, okay, I'll do it. Quit whining. So Henry had a sort of a characteristic. He would kind of whine. It sounded sort of like a crying, he would say. He would say things like, in fact, he said this as he went by me. We switched places, and as he went by, he said, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Well, I looked around and all the stuff going around, you know. And I said, well, I don't understand that, Henry. Everybody out, all of our buddies know we like it here. This is a fun time to have, and a lot of guys are having picnics over there near the woods. And he said, I don't think that's funny at all. I don't want to be here. And so I took his place. He took my place. And then I glanced over at the Sergeant Maui, and I said, how you doing, Warren? What are we going to do, stay here all day long? We were intimate talkers, you know. And nobody was calling anybody Sergeant at that time because you never knew who was listening. And if you were labeled Sergeant, you might get killed because you were a Sergeant, see. So anyway, so he went to my place, I took his place, and Sergeant Maui said to me, he said, okay, let's go. I said, go where? He said, let's go that way in the direction of the woods. I said, uh-oh. Prior to that command, I looked over to my front about, I'd say 10 yards, and there was a guy by the name of William Bill Swackhammer, who was in our platoon and was in the machine gun squad. And he was heavily involved in shooting at the woods with his machine gun. And I said, and I thought that I looked in the woods, I thought that I had seen German soldiers there. And Swackhammer was bing, 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 you know, in small bursts. And somebody said, knock it off, Swackhammer, cease fire. And he looked around and he said, what? So they threw a rock at him and hit him in the head, and he looked around and he stopped firing, which I don't know why, you know, but because there were Germans in the woods. The woods were loaded with Germans. So that happened, and I said, whoa, Swackhammer is really doing it over there. And Maui, the sergeant, said, okay, you guys, let's go. I said, you mean now? He said, yes, now. So I said, okay. So I grabbed the mortar, slung it over or tried to get it over my right shoulder so I could, no, I tried to get it over my left shoulder because I had my carbine over my right shoulder. I tried to get it over my left shoulder, and I got over my left shoulder and jumped up, or got up under the load of the 50-pound mortar, got up, you know, reasonably well. And I hadn't any more got up into a crouched position on the way up than I felt myself being banged on the way down. Like a great hand had hit me right in the stomach. forced me on the ground. The next thing I knew, I was flat on my back, and I looked down, and the mortar was someplace I couldn't see it, and my carbine was someplace, but I could see that this hand had been hit. And I said, "Oh no, not in the hands! Come on, you know." And I looked at this hand, and this hand was not in a straight line from my wrist. It was about a 30-degree angle. It had been hit from the bottom, and it had hit this wrist, the wrist part of my hand, and it forced my hand up in an angle. It's still in sort of an angle. But my other arm, I didn't think was so bad, but I looked over, and I had a new pile jacket, really beautiful field jacket, pile jacket. Oh, it was lovely, warm, and it looked like a chicken had been hit, or a duck had been hit with shot, because all the tufts of feathers were sticking out, and those were actually pieces of pile sticking out those holes in my arms, see? And I looked at myself, I said, "Oh, not that arm too, both arms." Then I looked down, and I'd been hit in the hip a couple of times, but blood all over the place here. I'd been hit here, blood all over the place here. I've been hit up in this, on the bicep up here, blood all over the place. I was really bloody, you know, but not very much from here waist down, but bloody up in here. And I said, "Oh boy, this is it, man." Then I started. The sensation was a burning sensation, not pain, just unbelievable burning. I guess shrapnel or shell fragments are very hot when they hit, but I had a lot of nerve sensation too. Burning, burning, burning. I started yelling for a medic. Well, I didn't know that I was from one of the 2 or 3 that got hit at first that day. And Kenny Hewitt, who was in my squad, crawled up. He crawled up. He said, "Hey Ray, how can I help you?" Nobody else crawled up. And he called. I said, "I don't know how you can help me, except maybe you can start yelling for a medic." So he started screaming for a medic, and about that time, Doc Cottingham, who was our company medic, crawled up, or walked up, or crawled up, or ran up with his outfit. No, before that, a man by the name of Marvin Tishkoff, who was a medic and a litter guy, walked up, and he looked at me, and he looked down. I said, "How you doing, Marvin?" He said, "Fine, Ray." He knew my name. And he said, "We're going to get to you." And the look on Marvin's face indicated to me that I was not very good shape, see. So Cottingham, Doc Cottingham was, I think, a T4, and he crawled up, and he was good. And he splintered, it was already splintered. He splinted this arm, he splinted this hand, this my wrist, put me in good shape. After he gave me some plasma, you know, and gave me a shot of morphine. And so I was getting pretty high about that time, and the litter guys came up, and they loaded me on a litter and took me over, and then there sort of became, the place was sort of loaded with a fair number of shells, and they took me out in sort of a depression, and I said, by that time the morphine was working, so I didn't feel all that much pain. I said, "Where are we going, guys? We're taking off someplace?" And they said, "Yeah, we're taking off someplace. We're going to the battalion aid station." I said, "Okay, well, do you think I need it?" They said, "Yeah, you need it. We'll do us a lot of favor, and you can quit talking for a while, too." We went over there, and all the guys in my squad, Jack Jensen, Kenny Hewitt, Bill Little, and another guy, Ayers, guy's last name was Ayers, they all came over. See, they all walked over, and I was on the ground, pretty bloody, and they said, you cowardly, I blew the cowardly for, "You cowardly, no-account son of a bitch." I said, what are you talking about? I just got hit. They said, "We know you got hit, and where you're going, this is a direct manifestation of cowardice." I said, "What does that mean?" They said, "You're going back to the white sheets and the nice nurses and everything, and we got to stay up here and all this crap, and there you're going." I said, "Anybody want to change places with?" And they said, "No, on second thought, I think we better go. You better go, Ray." So they loaded, and they laughed, and I laughed too, because I was about half bombed with morphine, you know. My physical situation did not, I would think, was not concordant with laughter. But anyway, I did laugh, and they took my litter and put it on the back end on racks of a light tank and took me to the battalion aid station. Okay.
You ended up back in Texas?
I went from the battalion aid station to the 82nd Armored Medical Battalion. From there to Saarburg to an evacuation hospital. From the evacuation hospital to a place in Vatel, France, which I visited last summer. George Hatt and I went back there with the hospital, right at the very hospital, but it's now a big spa type hotel. Went from the hotel where they took off. My arm was not hit below the elbow. We hit above the elbow. Gangrene set in. They amputated it about 4 inches below the elbow. This arm they set, and that was all that I had left. So became workable and so on. And from Vatel, they took me to Paris, to a big distribution center. And from Paris, they took me to England to recuperate, a little rehabilitation. From England, I went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. And from Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, we went in a whole group of patients to McCloskey General Hospital at Temple, Texas, okay, where I met my first wife, who's now dead, who's a nurse there, and married her after about 4 or 5 months. But I remember one thing may I say one. I was in Paris, and there was a colonel who was the big shot honcho there, a medical officer, and they called all of us in and said, we're going to fly you to a place near Southampton. It was a sort of a medical hospital plant, I think they called it, but it was used for medical treatment and for distribution and shipment back to the States. See, and I said, well, Colonel, I said, I can go. I was ambulatory then. I couldn't do it. This hand was in a cast, and this arm was off, and I had to do things like have people feed me. Although I could put a fork in here and feed myself with some fork in the cast. And the colonel said, yes, you're going to England. I said, well, we're going by plane. I said, well, I can. Am I going back there for rehabilitation? He said, yes, recuperation. I said, well, I really can go back to the States and recuperate probably just as fast as I can in England. And the guy said, and this colonel said to me, unbelievable sarcasm, just deadening. He said to me, soldier, how in the hell can you recuperate in the States when your body is in England like it's going to be? I said, good point, sir. He said, that's all, soldier, bye. You're dismissed. Oh, I wanted to kill an officer then, because I didn't think that, he should treat poor old amputee. By that time, I stopped feeling sorry for myself, but I felt ire to him. But that puts me back in Temple, Texas, and I got out of the Army. I got back in the States, or Temple, Texas, in about, April of 1945. Met my wife-to-be in August of 1945. Had 3 dates, got engaged after 3 dates, and we got married in January the 8th. No. I got discharged from the Army in January the 18th, 1946, and my wife and I got married in February the 20th of 1946. And we were married 47 years before she died. Okay?
And her name was?
Her name was Dorothy Frances McGuigan, and I think she was Polish. No. I'm sorry, Irish. She was Irish. She was an Irish blue-eyed lass, and we had 3 children, and I went back to school for 10 years, and started to teach at the University of Minnesota for 30 years.
Well, we're going to close now, but I reserve the right to come back and do some more detailed in between stuff.
Well, to come back in Longview, I do hope. I'm not coming to Abilene.
Sometime.
Oh, you mean some way? Mm-hmm. I'll be happy to do that. And certainly, I want to thank you and Julie for being very, very sort of acceptive, is the term. Okay.
Okay, we're going to turn him off. He didn't get the whole deal today. I did the whole. I've got all that other on tape.
What are you supposed to do?
I've got another person, Dr.
You've done it one. Okay.
Dr. Williams.
Go over some of the points that